The alien professor's eyes bulged in disbelief as the lecture hall vidscreen flashed images of human soldiers doing something that no sane species would dare attempt. The young Talaxian student Orion leaned forward, unable to look away from the unfolding insanity. Professor Xyloth gestured to the frozen vid-screen image, his shaking finger pointing at the human in an armored vac suit, gripping a plasma grenade. Here, in this moment, this human soldier did something that would have gotten anyone else in the galaxy killed immediately. But he survived, and his suicidal actions turned the tide of the entire war. Orion's jaw dropped as he glanced around at his fellow students. Tentacled Zorgax cadets murmured nervously, insectoid Klaxian mandibles clicked in agitation, but the human exchange students just grinned knowingly, having heard this story before in their own education pods back on Earth. The professor continued. Having defied all logic and reason, braved certain death and accomplished the impossible, this human, Marcus Perry, exemplifies their entire species' baffling ability to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, no matter the odds. If Sergeant Perry had failed in this moment, if his mad gambit hadn't paid off, humanity would have lost the war and been enslaved or exterminated by the Zorvath Empire. Professor Xyloth shook his head, still hardly believing it himself, despite having studied Perry's exploits for decades. But before I tell you what he did, we must understand the desperate circumstances and horrible costs facing humanity if Perry failed. The lecture hall lights dimmed as the holographic projection expanded, enveloping the class in a harrowing historical simulation. Orion gripped his desk, hearts pounding, dreading what he would witness but hungry to know the truth. What could one human soldier have possibly done to prevent his species' grim fate, and forever cement humanity's reputation for doing the unthinkable? Orion feared the answer might be more than his rational Talaxian mind was prepared to comprehend, but he had to know. Professor Xyloth's eyes gleamed as the holographic star map zoomed in on a small reddish planet orbiting a binary star system. This, students, is where the Battle of Corax took place, an unremarkable world, save for its abundant mineral wealth. The projection shifted, highlighting the various alien factions vying for control: bulbous Talaxian dreadnoughts, sleek Zorgax raiders, and angular Klaxian hive ships jockeyed for position, exchanging sporadic fire. For months this deadlock persisted. The Talaxians held the advantage but could not break the stalemate. Professor Xyloth paused dramatically. And then the humans arrived. The display zoomed out, revealing a small cluster of human vessels emerging from FTL. Utilitarian and unadorned compared to the artistic flourishes of the alien warships, they seemed almost primitive. Admiral Perry's fleet was a mystery. Humanity had no stake in Corax, no reason to intervene, but intervene they did. Orion watched, heart pounding, as the human ships plunged into the fray with reckless abandon. What they lacked in size and firepower, they made up for in speed and coordination. The hologram showcased their unconventional tactics. A handful of small frigates barely visible on the tactical display swarmed a lumbering Talaxian battleship. The mighty warship's point defense grid flared, but couldn't track the nimble attackers. Precision strikes tore into the larger vessel's shield generators and engines, leaving it dead in space. Another display, a wing of human single-pilot attack craft, danced through a hail of flak and energy beams to deliver a devastating volley into the heart of a Klaxian hive ship. The massive vessel shuddered and split apart, disgorging clouds of atmosphere and debris. "This is just a taste of what Perry's forces accomplished that day," Professor Xyloth said, his voice hushed with awe. "Outmaneuvered, outgunned, by all conventional wisdom, they should have been annihilated." The display froze, the Battle of Corax suspended in time. Burning ships and shattered wrecks littered the space around the embattled planet, but the tactical data was clear. The human fleet flew victorious among the carnage, having secured a foothold in orbit. In a matter of hours, Admiral Perry had done the impossible. He had upset the balance of power on a galactic scale, and this was just the beginning. Professor Xyloth turned to face his students, his expression deadly serious. The Battle of Corax was a wake-up call for the galaxy, a warning that humanity was not to be underestimated or trifled with, but it was also a precursor, a herald of even greater upheavals to come. The lecture hall lights brightened as the projection faded. Orion blinked, his mind reeling as he tried to process the implications of what he had just witnessed. If this was just the start of humanity's impact on galactic affairs, what else had they done? What other impossible feats had they accomplished? He looked to the human students, who seemed unsurprised by the tale. They had grown up with these stories, these legends of their species' triumphs against overwhelming odds. But for Orion and his fellow non-human classmates, it was a staggering revelation. Professor Zyloth cleared his throat, drawing the students' attention back to the front of the hall. Now let us examine the broader context and consequences of Peri's actions at Corax. For this victory was not without its costs, both for humanity and the galaxy as a whole. The professor pauses the recording, turning to face the class. Admiral Peri's words sent shockwaves through the Talaxian leadership. They had never been challenged in such a way, and certainly not by a species they considered to be technologically and militarily inferior. Orion leans forward in his seat, captivated by the unfolding drama. The idea of a less advanced species standing up to the galactic powers is almost unthinkable, yet here is proof that it happened. The professor continues, The Talaxians, of course, did not take kindly to Peri's speech. They accused the humans of meddling in affairs they had no right to be involved in, of overstepping their bounds and interfering with the natural order of things. On the screen behind the professor, the image of a Talaxian leader appears, his face contorted in anger. You humans think you can just swoop in and dictate terms to us? We have been masters of this galaxy for centuries, and we will not be lectured by upstarts like you. But Admiral Peri remains unfazed by the outburst. We are not here to dictate terms, he replies calmly. We are here to ensure that the rights of all sentient beings are respected, regardless of their technological advancement or military might. If that means standing up to the established powers, then so be it. Orion can't help but feel a swell of admiration for the human admiral. To stand firm in the face of such opposition, to hold true to one's principles even when threatened by those who could easily crush you, that is a rare kind of courage. The professor fast-forwards through more of the heated exchange, pausing only to highlight key moments. The Talaxians threatened economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, even military retaliation. But Peri and the humans would not back down. They had drawn a line in the sand, and they were prepared to defend it no matter the cost. Orion glances around at his classmates, seeing the same mix of awe and disbelief on their faces. The humans, it seems, are not at all what they had been led to believe. They are not weak or primitive or easily cowed. They are something else entirely, something the galaxy has never seen before. The professor clears his throat, drawing the students' attention back to the front of the room. The standoff at Corax marked a turning point in galactic history. It was the moment when humanity truly arrived on the stage, not as a bit player, but as a major force to be reckoned with. He leans forward, his eyes gleaming with intensity. But as significant as the Battle of Corax was, it was only the beginning. For the true test of humanity's resolve, and the event that would forever cement their place in the annals of galactic history, was yet to come. The professor pauses the footage, his expression somber. The aftermath of Corax was a turning point for humanity. They had made a powerful enemy in the Talaxians, and the other galactic powers were quick to follow suit. The vidscreen flickers to life again, this time showing scenes of chaos on alien worlds. Human diplomats, their faces tight with barely concealed anger, are marched unceremoniously to waiting shuttles. Embassy buildings, once proud symbols of Earth's growing influence, are shuttered and barricaded. Flags bearing the human insignia are torn down and trampled underfoot by jeering crowds. The message was clear, the professor says. Humanity was no longer welcome in the galactic community. They were pariahs, outcasts, their actions at Corax condemned as reckless and destabilizing. Orocian watches as the footage cuts to a press conference back on Earth. Admiral Peri, looking tired but resolute, faces a barrage of questions from the assembled journalists. "Admiral, what do you say to those who accuse you of leading humanity into isolation?" one reporter asks, thrusting a microphone towards Perry's face. Perry takes a deep breath, his eyes flashing with conviction. "We knew there would be repercussions. We knew that standing up for what's right wouldn't be easy. But we also knew that we had to take a stand. We couldn't let the Talaxians and the other powers bully the people of Korax into submission. If that means we have to go it alone for a while, then so be it." The professor nods, his expression thoughtful. Perry's words struck a chord with the human population. They rallied behind their admiral, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that they were now alone in a hostile galaxy. The vid screen shifts again, showing images of human shipyards and factories working at full capacity. Massive warships take shape in orbital dry docks, bristling with advanced weapons and shielding. Ground-based facilities churn out tanks, fighter craft, and powered armor suits by the thousands. Humanity poured all of its resources into strengthening its military, the professor explains. They knew that they would need to be able to defend themselves against any aggression from the galactic powers. Orion leans forward, fascinated by the footage of human ingenuity and determination. Even in the face of overwhelming opposition, they refuse to back down, refuse to compromise their principles. The professor continues, "But the humans didn't just focus on military might. They also began reaching out to other species who had been marginalized or exploited by the major powers. They offered trade deals, technological exchanges, even military protection in exchange for alliances and support." The vid screen shows human diplomats shaking hands with representatives from a dozen different species, some humanoid, others decidedly not. Massive human freighters unload cargo at alien spaceports, while human warships patrol the borders of their new allies' territories. "It was a bold strategy," the professor says, "and one that would have far-reaching consequences for the galaxy as a whole. The humans were building a coalition, a new power bloc that could challenge the dominance of the established powers." The professor pauses, his face grave. "What I'm about to reveal to you, students, is perhaps the darkest moment in the history of the galaxy, a moment when the fate of not just humanity, but countless civilizations hung in the balance." The lecture hall falls silent, every student hanging on the professor's words. Orion feels a chill run down his spine, a sense of foreboding settling in his gut. The professor taps a button, and a new set of images appears on the screen. Talaxian military schematics, heavily redacted documents, and grainy surveillance footage. In the aftermath of their defeat at Korax, the Talaxians began work on a secret project, one that would ensure their dominance over the galaxy for generations to come. He zooms in on a particular schematic, a massive spherical device bristling with power conduits and control systems. They called it the Vortex Bomb, a weapon capable of unleashing a destructive force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. A single vortex bomb could annihilate an entire planet, reducing it to atoms in a matter of seconds. Gasps of horror echo through the lecture hall. Orion's hands tremble, his mind reeling at the thought of such a devastating weapon. The professor continues, his voice heavy with the weight of history. The Talaxians planned to use the vortex bomb to exact their revenge on humanity. They would start with Earth, wiping out the heart of human civilization in one fell swoop. Then, they would move on to the human colonies, systematically eradicating every trace of humanity from the galaxy. He brings up a map of human-controlled space, dotted with glowing red targets. If they had succeeded, it would have been the end of humanity as we know it. Billions of lives snuffed out in an instant, all in the name of vengeance. Orion feels a wave of nausea wash over him, his stomach churning at the thought of such wanton destruction. He glances at the human students, sees the horror and disbelief etched on their faces. But the professor isn't finished. Thankfully, humanity's network of allies and advanced intelligence gathering allowed them to uncover the Talaxian plot before it could be carried out. They knew they had to act fast, to strike at the heart of the Talaxian war machine before it was too late. The screen flickers, then shows a grainy video feed. A group of human soldiers clad in advanced stealth armor and wielding high-tech weapons creep through the shadows of a massive industrial complex. At their head is a familiar figure, Admiral Marcus Perry. In a daring raid, Perry led a team of Special Forces operatives deep into Talaxian space, infiltrating the facility where the vortex bomb was being developed. They knew the risks, knew that they would likely not survive the mission, but they also knew that the fate of their species and countless others depended on their success. The video shows Perry and his team engaging Talaxian security forces, their weapons flashing in the dim light. They move with precision and speed, cutting through the defenders like a hot knife through butter. Finally, they reach the heart of the facility, a massive chamber housing the vortex bomb itself. Perry doesn't hesitate. He pulls a device from his belt, a high-yield explosive, and attaches it to the bomb's control systems. The feed cuts out, replaced by exterior footage of the facility. For a moment, all is still. Then a blinding flash of light, followed by a massive fireball that consumes the entire complex. The shockwave ripples out across the planet's surface, flattening buildings and tossing vehicles like toys. When the smoke clears, the facility is gone, reduced to a smoldering crater, and with it the Talaxian dream of galactic domination. The professor pauses the footage, his eyes downcast. Perry and his team sacrificed their lives to save us all, he says softly. They knew they would not survive the blast, but they did it anyway. They gave their lives so that we might live. Orion feels a lump form in his throat, a mix of sorrow and gratitude for the brave humans who had given everything to protect the galaxy. Around him, he sees similar expressions on the faces of his classmates, a shared sense of awe and respect for the heroes of Earth. The professor clears his throat, his voice thick with emotion. Let this be a lesson to us all, he says. The actions of a few brave individuals can change the course of history. They can light the way in the darkest of times and remind us of what it means to be truly noble. As the lecture ends and the students file out of the hall, Orion can't help but feel a sense of pride and kinship with the humans. They had started as outsiders, as upstarts who dared to challenge the established order, but through their courage and sacrifice, they had earned their place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. He walks out into the bright sunlight of the campus, his mind awhirl with thoughts of the future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knows that humanity will be there to face them head-on, just as they always had. And he can't wait to see what they will achieve next. The lecture hall buzzes with chatter as Orion and his fellow students pour out into the corridor, their minds still reeling from the revelations of the past hour. Orion spots his human classmate, a lanky youth named Alex, leaning against the wall, his face pensive. "Hey," Orion says, sidling up to him. "That was some heavy stuff, huh?" Alex nods, his eyes distant. "Yeah, I knew about the Battle of Corax and all that, but I had no idea about the vortex bomb. That's some serious shit." "No kidding," Orion agrees. "I can't even imagine what it must have been like for Perry and his team, knowing they were going to their deaths like that." Alex is silent for a moment, then speaks, his voice low. "You know, my great-grandfather was one of the soldiers who died in that raid." Orion's eyes widen. "Really?" Alex nods. "Yeah, Lieutenant James Hawkins. He was Perry's second in command. My family's always been proud of what he did, but it's different, hearing about it like this, seeing it." Orion puts a hand on his friend's shoulder, feeling a sudden surge of empathy. "I'm sorry, man, I can't even imagine what that must be like." Alex gives him a small smile. "Thanks, it's a lot to process, you know? Knowing that my own flesh and blood was there, that he gave his life to save us all. It's humbling, and kind of scary too." Orion nods, understanding. "It just goes to show how much one person can change things," he says softly, "how much of a difference one life can make." They stand there in silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Then Alex straightens up, a new determination in his eyes. "Come on," he says, clapping Orion on the back. We've got a lot of work to do if we're going to live up to their legacy. The galaxy's not going to save itself, you know. Orion grins, feeling a new sense of purpose, of direction. Lead the way, human, lead the way. Together they set off down the corridor, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. For they know that they stand on the shoulders of giants, of heroes who had given everything to ensure that they might have a chance at a better tomorrow, and they will not let that sacrifice be in vain. Orion's compad buzzes insistently as he steps out of the lecture hall, the bright sunlight of the campus quad momentarily blinding him. He fumbles for the device, squinting at the screen. A message from his father flashes up, marked urgent. Orion's heart skips a beat as he reads the terse text. New development in the Orcs situation. Need you back at the embassy ASAP. Sensitive information can't discuss over comms. Orion frowns, his mind racing. The Battle of Orcs was decades ago, ancient history as far as he was concerned. What could have happened to bring it back into the spotlight now? He looks up, scanning the quad for Alex. He spots his friend chatting with a group of Zorgax cadets, their tentacles waving animatedly as they discuss the lecture. Orion starts towards them, then hesitates. His father's message had been clear. This was sensitive information, not to be shared with anyone, not even his best friend. He sighs, his finger hovering over the reply button. He hates keeping secrets from Alex, but he knows his duty as a Talaxian diplomat's son. He has to put his people first, even if it means keeping those closest to him in the dark. With a heavy heart, he taps out a quick response to his father, confirming that he's on his way. Then he pockets the compad and sets off across the quad, his mind awhirl with questions and speculations. What could have happened to bring the Battle of Orcs back into the forefront of galactic politics? What sensitive information could his father have uncovered? And what did it mean for the future of Talax and its relationship with Earth? As he walks, he can't shake the feeling that he's standing on the precipice of something big, something that could change the course of history once again, and he knows that whatever happens, he'll be ready to face it head-on, just like the heroes of Orcs before him. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.